Our gospel reading this morning is from the book of Matthew, chapter 14, verses 22 through 23. I'll be reading from the Common English Bible. Right then, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead to the other side of the lake while he dismissed the crowds. When he sent them away, he went up onto a mountain by himself to pray. Evening came, and he was alone. This is the gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
For centuries, families have been gathering around dinner tables and living rooms, around campfires and caves to share their stories of their family origins. Our stories give us a context to who we are, how we see ourselves, and how we see the world. When a young child learns about the struggles her grandparents endured during the Great Depression, she can be proud of how her family overcame hardship. At the same time, learning the dark truths about a family's slave-owning past can muddy someone's perception of who they are. Learning the truth about our family heritage is all the rage right now. Modern technology has made it easy to find out a family's genetic genealogy, even as elders pass away and stories leave with them. For $99 plus shipping and handling, you too can spit your DNA into a tube and mail it off to a company that analyzes your genetic code while promising to keep your sensitive data safe. So far, 26 million people, myself included, have sent off their DNA to discover their health and family histories. It's estimated that that number will soar to 100 million in the next 2 years. We want to know who we are and where we came from. In every human culture, humans have been using stories to describe the beginnings of the world so as to make sense of the world around them. The biblical accounts of the creation of the world show a God that is active in turning chaos of the cosmos into into an environment that you can live in. Our Genesis story tells of a God who intentionally created a space for life to exist and does so in a dynamic way, bringing creation into being over time. There's a contrasting rhythm to everything. There is evening, and then there's morning. There's land, there's sea. 1 day, 2 days, 7 days. God chooses time to create, paying attention to the small details of things like photosynthesis, the chemistry and makeup of the 4 elements necessary for life, the rhythm of the orbit of the sun and the planets. God created the wombat and the panther and the African elephant. God created the sea bass, the jellyfish, and the big-eyed tuna. And for a reason unknown to me, God also created roaches and mosquitoes. Why, God, why? I guess this is why they say God is mysterious. And then something special happened. God created human beings. And unlike anything God had created before, humans were made in the image of God and in the image of the one who created them. Humans are earthly replicas of God, sharing with God the power over the universe to create and care for the earth. Then, on the 6th day of creation, after the heavens and the earth and all that lived on it were created, God looked at everything and said it was good. Really good. Then on the 7th day, God rested. God didn't rest because God was tired. Rather, rest is the completion of creation. The very nature of the universe has its climax and crescendo in that rest. It's built into the very fabric of all things created. An inhale, an exhale. You can't have one without the other. You need both to breathe. Rest allows creation the space to breathe, to be what it's going to be without being controlled and manipulated. Every living thing is allowed the space to renew itself, to experience freedom and make peace. This is how God designed it. Everything changes, though, when sin enters the story, distorting the natural created rhythm of life. It doesn't take us long to find stories of dysfunctional family relationships, inequality among the sexes, slavery, deceit, manipulation, sex trafficking, murder. In the short history of humanity, things are really falling apart. The Israelites find themselves enslaved by a ruler who cares nothing more than to prove his power and wealth by forcing an entire nation into slavery to build more cities to stockpile his abundance of grain. The Israelites become commodities that can be used and abused for the benefit of another more powerful person, for the false gods of Egypt. Pharaoh's endless production schedule makes it clear that there is absolutely no time for rest. Everyone is caught up in the endless grind of production. The gods, Pharaoh, the taskmasters, and especially the slaves. More bricks, just make more bricks. But God is a God of liberation. God hears the cries of the fatigue of God's people, resolves to liberate Israel from the system that exploits, and recruits Moses to lead the way out of the land of Egypt to the promised land. Once there, Moses delivers to the people a new set of laws to follow, God's laws. Principles that are uniquely meant to shape a new way of living, a new attitude of the mind. These 10 words create a spirit of human community and set God's people apart from the demands of the world. Thus, the fourth command to keep the Sabbath holy is a command drawn straight from the Exodus narrative. The God who rests is the one who emancipates God's people from slavery and from the oppressive work system that is Egypt. Sabbath is a reminder that God is active in our own liberation from brickmaking, from the addiction to get ahead, from the pressure to make more money, from the temptation that more stuff will make you happier, to do more, get more. Sabbath commands that we take a breath and rest to make peace with what we can't control. Sabbath is a word that demands justice for every living thing. It's the reminder that all humanity is equal, that we are all made in the image of God, ruler and slave, rich and poor. It's not just a day of rest because we're tired and need to sleep in, but it's an intentional posture of the heart that recognizes the dignity of every human being, not to be worked to death. Everything needs time to renew itself. But the frantic pace of our modern life has left us feeling less productive, yet busier than ever. We even think of our busyness as a badge of honor. Complaining about being busy is so common that I don't even think we notice we're doing it. We just have so much to do: work, family, housework, errands, play dates, after-school sports, music lessons, school. We just keep adding more and more things to our plate and just feel like we're falling further and further behind, fumbling out of step to the next thing on our schedule. I read that Americans work 350 more hours, or 9 work weeks more, than the average European per year. The same study tells us that Americans suffer from more stress, cardiac arrest, hardening of the arteries, and cancer than Europeans do. Even our bodies are crying out for Sabbath. God has built into the very nature of the world a way for us to be liberated from this rat race that is our American busyness culture by living a Sabbath life. Practicing a 6 6-in-1 rhythm of life looks like this. You work for 6 days, and take one intentional day to unplug from the things that distract your focus from God so that you can look at the good and the holy that is in this world. A Sabbath life asks you to consciously put away your phone, overlook the unanswered emails, step away from that adrenaline hit of the likes on Facebook or Instagram. Sabbath asks us to put down a project that can't seem to resolve itself, to say, not today, to a meeting that would take time away from your family, to step back for a moment from writing a sermon because spending hours trying to make it perfect is time spent away from your daughter. Sabbath doesn't mean neglecting your work or your family responsibilities. Sabbath just commands that we breathe and rest, to focus our minds and our hearts and bodies on God. Now we can learn a lot about Sabbath by looking at the way Jesus lived his life. Jesus is very intentional about how he spends time with others when he's doing ministry and how much time he dedicates to God alone in prayer. We see this in the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. After days of teaching and healing and traveling, Jesus withdraws to a deserted place to get away, but the crowds follow Jesus anyways. The disciples wanted to send them away, but Jesus had compassion for the people and healed those who were sick and feeds the entirety of them until they were full. After his work was done, he sent the crowds away and also the disciples so that he could get to a mountaintop and pray alone. Now Jesus is at the peak of his ministry here. People are seeking him out because they knew that this man who could heal and perform miracles was special. The temptation to do more, heal more, get more famous, to capitalize on his celebrity was real. Why was he retreating? Now is the time to start a website, create a marketing plan, and develop swag to sell online. But Jesus doesn't fall into this temptation. For Jesus knows that the heart needs rest so that it can return refreshed and ready to do more of God's will. It's the rhythm of rest and work that Jesus has perfected so well. Living a Sabbath life teaches us that we need to stop and be proud of the work we've already completed, even if the work is not completely done. Now I know this takes discipline and practice and a whole lot of trust to just walk away from something you've been spending so much time doing. Practicing the rhythm of Sabbath can be hard when we first start out because we're going to feel tempted to just keep pushing and working and making more bricks. Because the guy beside you, he's not resting and he might make more bricks than you do and you don't want to fall behind. But what if not doing was just as important as the doing? Built into every strength program are days of work and days of rest. Without rest, you won't see any gains or any muscle gains. The same is true in other disciplines. You want to get more work done? Walk away from it for a day. You want to be more creative? Don't create and go for a hike or walk your dog. The rhythm of Sabbath can be found everywhere. Progress in creativity and beauty and celebration and fullness of life happens in the spaces of pause and rest. I've been a musician for 25 years, even more if you count those elementary school lessons on the recorder. At the end of my 4th grade year, Ms. Heinze, the high school orchestra director, came to my elementary school to recruit new players for her after-school beginner string program. I walked timidly into the music room, not sure what to expect. Instruments lined the room for us to hold and try on. Which instrument should I pick? What's that huge one in the corner? The bass? There's no way I, a 10-year-old, was going to be able to physically cart that huge instrument to a drum lesson. But then I pictured myself getting a cello on and off the school bus. Not gonna happen. So I made my way to the table where the smaller instruments were. I bypassed the table with the violas on it because even at a young age, I had the foresight to know that I did not want to play the viola. I picked up the violin and put it to my chin. Yes, this feels right. Not too big, not too small. It's pretty easy to hold. I can see where I can put my fingers. Okay, I'll take it. And thus my violin career began. I learned the note names and where they were on the fingerboard of the violin. Some instruments, like the violin, read in treble clef, and others read in bass clef. I learned that notes had different rhythms or time values. And I learned that rests are an interval of silence notated by a different symbol. What I now know is that when you play the violin in an orchestra and you miss a note, nobody usually notices. But you play a note on a rest and everyone knows it was you. Rest and music create more than just a separation between notes. They create a mood, an atmosphere, an attitude. They create depth and emotions, shape and body to the complex sounds. Without rest, a piece can feel chaotic, clumsy, overwhelming, or just busy and loud. Well, let's experiment with that right now. I've asked Paul to play a familiar piece of music for us, and while he's playing, I want you to pay attention to the notes, the movement, the emotion, the shape of the music.
So I would choose to be with you. That's if the choice were mine to make. But you can make decisions too, and you can have this heart to break. And so it goes, and so it goes, and you're the only one.
Okay, now I want you to listen to the exact same song, but with the rests removed.
So I would choose to be with you, that's if the choice were mine to make. But you can make decisions too, you can have this heart to break. And so it goes, and so it goes, and you're the only one who knows.
So the same notes are still there. He played all the same chords, all the same words. But when the rests were removed, it changed the song completely. It was clumsy, it was messy, it was silly. The composer of the music intentionally created these rests and pause in the music for a purpose. And the piece is not the same without that delicate dance between the rests and the notes. The same is true for us. We experience the fullness of life when we look to God to restore that balance and serenity and sanctity that Sabbath offers to us. May we acknowledge the space between the notes is just as important as the actual notes themselves. Not doing is just as important as doing. May we strive to find a life full of meaning and celebration by seeking that delicate rhythm of rest and work, a Sabbath life.